Good evening. We're back with more Marvel Champions. And this evening will be a card review of the Thor Hero Pack. So, I found Miss Marvel underwhelming, but we'll take a look at Thor. The alter ego is Odinson. Action, search your deck and discard pile for the Mjolnir upgrade. Okay, seems a little similar to Captain America, except that it's not in the setup phase. You can do it repeatedly. I wonder if there are cards that put Mjolnir back in the deck. He recovers for 4. Thor, 1/2/2, so his thwarting is a little weak. Response: after you engage a minion, draw 2 cards. Well, that's going to be very good in against certain scenarios. Ultron comes to mind. He brings a drone in pretty much every turn. One of the Green Goblin ones is very minion heavy. So, situationally, a very strong ability. His hand size is 4. And his alter ego hand size is 5, so he's got weak hand size to compensate, which means he's going to be inconsistent against certain scenarios with this ability. He probably has weak thwarting in order to make up for his strong card drop, but when the card draw is weak, then he just has weak thwarting with no upside. So, good against some scenarios, maybe not so good against others. Lady Sif, 4 cost, 2/2, 3 health. After Lady Sif enters play, ready Thor or Odinson. That's a little bit pricey for an ally. It's a wild resource, that's nice. But you only get 4 thwart or 4 attack, and then a ready of Thor for Lady Sif. And what is a ready worth? Well, with Captain America, it's built into the card and you just discard a card to ready him. With Iron Man, you play Arc Reactor and then you can ready him once per round for the rest of the game. So, as in Lord of the Rings LCG, a ready isn't really worth that much. And so getting 1 ready doesn't make up for Lady Sif's weak thwarting and damage. She needs probably 1 more health or +1 attack or something, or +1 thwarting to really be good for her cost, or she needs to cost 1 less. As she is, I think this card will be used a lot for her wild resource more than for actually playing her. Defender of the 9 Realms, 0 cost. Hero action thwart. Discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until you discard a minion. Put that minion into play engaged with you. Remove 3 threat from a scheme. So that reminds me a little bit of a Marthiel from Lord of the Rings LCG. I think that was his name. So you also will draw 2 cards because Thor's ability, let's say once per round, once per phase. So you can use it during the hero phase and the villain phase. You can use it when the villain brings a minion into play. And then again with Defender of the 9 Realms. Or vice versa, actually. Use Defender of the 9 Realms, then again when the villain takes his turn. But the downside is that you have to bring a minion into play, so that's going to be inconsistent again. So Thor's hero power is going to be inconsistent from scenario to scenario. Defender of the 9 Realms is going to be inconsistent from play to play. Because if you bring a big minion into play, you're going to be sad. And if you bring a small one into play, you're going to be happy. Because you drew 2 cards and removed 3 threat. At the cost of basically like exhausting your hero. Because you'll basically attack the minion down if you're fortunate. If not, then you may have to spend the 2 cards that you drew in order to deal with the minion that you brought into play. This is a good card. I think it's good more often than not. I think there will be times when you play it and you'll be sad. So overall, Thor so far is looking strong at times and maybe a little weaker at times. For Asgard, search your deck and discard pile for a card with the Asgard trait and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck. It's an alter ego action. That's good. You don't really want to be in alter ego form a lot when you're playing true solo. But and this alone doesn't really give a reason to flip to alter ego, so I think it gets discarded a lot, but It's good when you do use it. You can search for a specific card that you need. Hammer Throw. Exhaust Mjolnir, deal 8 damage to an enemy, and return Mjolnir to your hand. Well, why does it matter if you exhaust Mjolnir if you're returning it to your hand? Does it stay exhausted in your hand? This attack gains overkill, so you can't like hammer throw twice per round. I think this is how I'm reading it. Because otherwise, why would it say exhaust Mjolnir if it wasn't meant to stay exhausted in your hand? Unless there are other abilities that exhaust Mjolnir, so you just can't use another ability and then hammer throw. But otherwise, that doesn't make sense. There must be other cards that exhausted, because you can't leave something exhausted. Cards don't stay exhausted when they return to your hand, so this must be if you've played another card that exhausted Mjolnir. 3 cost for 8 damage. This is actually 4 cost because you have to play Mjolnir again. That makes it weaker than Swinging Web Kick in at least one way, but it does have overkill, and which makes it stronger than Swinging Web Kick. So I'd say it's roughly equivalent. It's not bad, but not real good or special. It's not going to make the hero overpowered or anything. Lightning Strike. Spend X lightning resources. Deal X damage to the villain and each minion engaged with you. A card that will be good against Ultron. So Thor looks like he's pretty strong against Ultron overall. Probably any enemy or any scenario that has a lot of minions, Thor will be good against. But weak against scenarios that need a lot of thwarting, because I haven't seen any thwart except for Defender of the Nine Realms. He only comes with a base of 1 thwart. So he's like a multiple minion specialist. Asgard, 3 cost, you get +1 hand size. Okay, so that's good. It makes up for your weak starting hand size, makes them a little more consistent, but it is unique. There will only be 1 per deck. You can fetch it with the grabber. I forget what it was called, but only when in Alter Ego. Still going to be inconsistent because you won't always draw this or be able to get it out. And the weak thwarting as well will make him good situationally, but inconsistent. God of Thunder. Exhaust God of Thunder. Generate a lightning resource. Okay, it's synergistic. Helps his cost efficiency. Yeah, lots of heroes include a card like this. Generates resources. Mjolnir, it's restricted, gets +1 attack and gains aerial. Okay, that's fine. Thor's Helmet, 2 cost +5 hit points. Okay. That's better than Mark 5 armor, which is 3 cost for 5 hit points, but Mark 5 armor also gives +1 hand size. Okay, so that's it for the Thor cards. Overall, I mean, there's only one way to thwart besides Thor's base thwart, and that's pretty bad in true solo. But there are some scenarios like Ultron that don't require a lot of thwarting, or where you can get some thwarting from allies, particularly leadership now that Falcon is out, or I mean, available to me. Been out for 3 years, but or if you're playing Justice Thor, but I really like leadership aspect with the cards that are available to me right now. I think that's the best aspect. So overall, Thor's going to be okay, but weak against scenarios that require a lot of thwarting, but very strong against scenarios that have a lot of minions to fight, which is thematic. I would say he'll be stronger than Miss Marvel, not as strong or consistent as Captain America. Probably better than Iron Man in certain situations and worse than Iron Man in other situations. Hercules. Reduce the cost to play Hercules by 1 for each minion engaged with you. Okay, so this is a basic card that really goes well with Thor. He has 3 attack and 4 health, so you get a lot of damage out of him. But you really need like 3 minions on the table to make this a really good card. If there's only 2 on the table, it's okay. If there's 1 on the table, it's bad. 2 on the table, it's decent. 3, it's very good. 1, it's pretty bad. So in which scenarios do you reliably have 2 on the table? Sometimes this will have to sit in your hand, and that does have a cost because it's like -1 resource every round. So again, situationally good, situationally bad, probably inconsistent. Probably worth an include at this point from aggression though, because aggression doesn't have access to a lot of allies. Valkyrie, 3 cost. So this is an Asgard card, which means it can be pulled by Thor with a 1 card. 1 thwart, 2 attack. After Valkyrie enters play, deal 2 damage to a minion, 3 instead if you paid for this card using a lightning resource. So a base of 4 attack for 3, a chump block, plus a deal 2 damage to a minion. It's okay. I'd prefer if you could deal 2 damage to an enemy, but it's okay. It's worth an include in aggression decks just to have another ally. It's a lightning resource for Thor. I think it's good if you're playing, or it's worth including if you're playing aggression Thor. And that's probably the default deck, but I do think leadership Thor is going to be better for true solo, because if you're playing against expert difficulty, if you're playing against standard, then aggression will probably be fun and get you some really fast wins. Chase them down, we've seen before. Get over here, like Mortal Kombat. 0 cost, deal 1 damage to a minion if you have the aerial trait, engage that enemy. Okay, so this is like a multiplayer focused card. Probably wouldn't run it in solo just for the 1 damage. In multiplayer, I don't know. Probably put it in a deck just for fun, if nothing else, in multiplayer. Thor seems like a pretty fun hero situationally, but probably won't end up being an elite hero, except against certain scenarios, just because of the inconsistency. Okay. So next up we have Mean Swing. When your hero makes a basic attack, exhaust a weapon. Okay, so there was another card that exhausts Mjolnir. Your hero gets +3 attack for this attack. So if you're running aggression with Thor, this is an immediate include. I'd say if you're running a weapon upgrade for any hero, this is a good card if you're running aggression aspect. 0 cost for +3 attack is great. Strength resource, great. Yeah, definitely a must include for any hero where you're running a weapon and aggression. Power of aggression we've seen before. Hall of Heroes, 2 cost, unique. After you defeat a minion, place 1 glory counter here. Exhaust Hall of Heroes and remove 3 glory counters from it, draw 3 cards. You have to be an alter ego to do that. That's strong. I'd definitely include this if I'm running aggression. Very strong card for aggression. Draw 3 cards for 2 cost. That's great. These cards don't really make aggression the best aspect over leadership, because what leadership offers is multiple plays of Mockingbird for the stun and lots of allies to block boss attacks, and so aggression doesn't really do anything to offer CC except for, well, tackle is a protection card, but no CC yet for aggression and not a lot of defense, so aggression seems to me like a multiplayer focused aspect right now and not a solo focused one. Battle Fury, play under any player's control, max 1 per player. After your hero attacks and defeats a minion, Deal 1 damage to your hero and discard Battle Fury ready your hero. Well, as I discussed earlier, I don't put a lot of value on readying your hero. And you have to deal 1 damage to your hero to do this. I probably wouldn't run this, because I just don't value readying your hero very highly. I'd value it at like 2 power maybe. And then you have to deal 1 damage to your hero, so you really only get 1 of overall value for the 1 cost. That's too low, I think. So I probably wouldn't run this. Yarnborn. 1 cost, upgrade, restricted. After your hero attacks an enemy, spend a strength resource. Deal 2 damage to an enemy. You don't have to exhaust the card to do that. This is great. I'd run this in every aggression deck. That seems really good. You could do it multiple times as long as you have strength resources. Yeah, I like this card a lot. You could even build an entire deck around it with tons of strength resources, and then after your hero attacks an enemy, spend a strength resource. Deal 2 damage to an enemy. You can do responses more than once, right? Now I guess it's once after each attack. So you'd have to play like, you'd have to do a basic attack and then also play like attack cards to do it twice in 1 round. But this still seems very good to me. I'd include it in every aggression deck right now. Okay, basic cards. Heimdall. 5 costs, 2 thwart, 3 attack. Takes 2 damage when he does that. So he only gets 1 attack and then he's dead. After Heimdall enters play, or two attacks and then he's dead, but only 1 if you want to use him as a blocker. After Heimdall enters play, look at the top 3 cards of the encounter deck, discard 1 of them, and put the others back in any order. Interesting. I've never put a high value on scrying. This could save you in certain situations. It could be pretty meh. Let's say you get 6 attack for him, and then the scrying ability saves you a couple of damage. How many damage would you need to save to make this good? Probably at least 4. So that's hard to do. This card's probably too expensive. If it costed 4, I think it would be good, but at 5 it's probably too expensive. That's a heavy investment of resources. I probably won't run this because I think 5 is too much. Invulnerability, 3 cost, give your hero a tough status card. That's too expensive for that. You'd have to like block 6 damage to make that worth it, which is possible, but not that often. So I think this is too expensive. It might get better later as more heavy hitting villains become common. But right now I think this is too expensive. Energy we've seen before. Genius, Strength, Avengers Mansion. Justice, under surveillance attached to the main scheme. Max 1 per scheme. Increase the target threat value of attached scheme by 4. So this is basically threat reduction of 4. But you can use it in the early game if there isn't 4 threat on the main quest or on the scheme. It's good. Yeah, it's fine. I would include it in a Justice deck. It's nothing exceptional. It's not going to elevate the aspect, but it's fine. It's adequate. It's worthy of inclusion. Teamwork. 0 cost when you use your basic thwart power or attack power. Exhaust an ally you control. Add that ally's matching power to your hero's power. Okay, so this gives your allies a use when they're just kind of sitting around waiting to die to the boss. When you've got like 2 wounds on your Mockingbird out of 3 and you're just waiting to use her as a chump blocker, this will give you a use for her. There was a card like this in the Captain America hero pack. I think the Captain America one was better though. That was card draw. This is adding probably typically 2 attack or 2 thwart for 0, and I value card draw more than 2. I value it at drawing 1 card at 3. So that's the better card, and I don't think you would run both because you can only use 1 per round because you have to exhaust the allies to use it. So I'd go with the one from the Captain America hero pack and not this one. Unless you don't have the Captain America pack, but you do have this one. Okay. Next up we have Second Wind. 3 cost, heal 4 damage from an identity. 5 damage if you paid for this using a science resource. For 3 cost, I think it's too expensive. If it gave you 6 healing, if it gave you heal 5 damage or 6 if you paid for it using a science resource, I would like it. But I like to get 2 and at least 2 in value for every energy to consider a card worthy of including. And if it gets more than that, then it's a good card. If it gets less, then it's not good or it's too expensive. And I'd say that's the case with Second Wind. Too expensive. Unless there's like a deck with some kind of healing synergy. Enhanced Physique, 2 cost. Okay, it's the 3 resource generator with the strength resources. They're just kind of rounding these out. It's fine if you need to generate strength resources. It's worth including. It'll probably get cycled out later as more powerful cards become available, but for now it's fine. It'll be worth including in some decks. And that's it. Okay, well, overall, would I recommend the Thor hero pack? Captain America is the #1 hero pack. So it really depends on what your objectives are in the game. If you want just the strongest heroes, Thor's going to be situationally strong, but not probably the hero that you want to bring out against every single villain. He's going to be very good against Ultron, probably good against the first Green Goblin scenario. He's a specialist that deals with lots of minions well. He's going to be fun to play for that reason. He'll be a lot of fun to play. But he'll be inconsistent, and against certain scenarios he won't be very good due to his lack of thwarting if you're playing solo. So, if you're a big Thor fan, I could recommend it. I certainly don't think it's a bad hero. I'd rank it above Miss Marvel and above most of the core set heroes. Probably right around Iron Man's power level, though situationally worse, situationally better. But he's not going to approach Captain America, who would be my #1 recommendation of the heroes I've covered so far. So, thank you for watching.